Okay, so I kind of mentioned this in the Google Classroom stream as well, but this is from that Khan Academy problems, the fourth set, the first problem. We had not really done any systems quite like this one, so don't stress about it if you're having trouble with it or didn't get it. If we ever did go to a traditional kind of assessment, this is not the type of question that would show up on an assessment. So I'll go ahead and do it though, just so you have a reference for it, and those of you that were trying to figure it out, feel free to kind of pause this video as you're going through and try to get ahead of me and see if you can figure it out with a couple of hints. But whenever you're solving systems, we're going to want to set them equal to each other. So you already have this one solved for y. So we need to solve this equation for y, this is actually x squared plus y squared equals 1. It's actually a circle. Okay, but what we're going to want to do here is, first of all, subtract your x squared. And then to get y by itself, you got to take the square root, right? And that would technically be plus or minus, but I'm not going to worry about that, and I'll show you why. So that's y equals square root of 1 minus x squared. Now you have to solve for y. So go ahead, set those two equal to each other. Okay, now we're just working with x. Okay, we've eliminated the y value by substituting it out, so we're just solving for x. You're going to start by squaring here, and that's why you don't have to worry about the plus or minus, because you're squaring it again. But we also have to square on the other side. Keep in mind, when you square a binomial, you have to multiply that by itself. That's just going to cancel the square root on the right side. So this is 4x squared minus 2x plus 1. And then I'm going to clean this up by doing a couple things here, but we're going to first of all combine your like terms there, negative 4x. We're going to add the x squared from the right to the left to make it 5x squared. And you're going to subtract the 1 from the right to the left, which actually gives you a 0. So this one's actually pretty well set up for complete the square. So I'm going to go ahead and just get rid of that because we already have a 0 there, which opens up our C spot. Next thing we have to do to get set for complete the square, make sure your a value is 1. Okay, now that is going to give you some fractions to deal with, but I think as you'll see, it's not terrible. So we're going to do that little b over 2 squared. B in this case is a negative 4/5 divided by 2. Now since it's fraction and a fraction, make that 2 over 1. Okay? Simplify that by doing the product of your outside over the product of your inside. And that's just the same as multiplying by the reciprocal. We can actually simplify that fraction, so that's never going to hurt. And then square it. Negative 2 squared is 4, 5 squared is 25. Okay, so that's what we're going to add into that C spot. Now, don't worry about the fractions really, because you're going to see they're actually not too bad to work with. And with completing the square, a lot of times you end up with already having common denominators. And in this case, we're adding to 0 on the right side, so that's not an issue. My next step is to actually factor. Remember, we have now made that a perfect square trinomial by adding in that value. And we also know what the factor is. Okay, so we know it's going to be minus 2/5 squared to get to here. Okay, so that's a lot of the work already. Now we square root again. They're both perfect squares. Square root of 4 is 2, square root of 25 is 5. So that comes out pretty clean. Now we're going to add the 2/5 over. And you have 2/5 plus or minus 2/5. Already have the common denominator there, so not too bad. 2 plus 2 is 4, over 5 is 4 over 5. 2 minus 2 is 0. Over 5 is 0. Okay, so there's your x values. Now, keeping in mind that we are solving a system here, we have to find a point. So I'm going to go back and pick the easiest equation I have, which is just the 2x minus 1. So I'm going to need that twice. I'm going to substitute my now x values that I just found. That's 2 times 4/5 minus 1. That's an 8/5 minus 1. That's an 8/5 minus 5 over 5, which is a 3/5. So there's one of your points. When you put in positive 4/5, you're going to get a positive 3/5. Okay, now this one's obviously a little bit simpler because we're just plugging in a 0. Really straightforward there. You're going to get that point 0, -1. And that should be your 2 points of intersection. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and show you what this one looks like on a calculator as well, just because I think sometimes getting that visual is helpful. So let's see if I can do this and keep the answers there for you. And again, that Graph and Calc 83, if you're looking for a free graphing calculator app, you're right there. Okay, find my calculator here. And I had them graphed already in there. And that's the photo we're looking at. Now you'll notice that I did actually have to, because we were dealing with the square root and we knew it had to be that plus or minus, I had to actually type that in twice as positive square root of 1 minus x squared and minus square root of 1 minus x squared. But it comes out as a circle like we talked about earlier. And then you're just looking for the points of intersection. Well, the 0, -1, pretty straightforward. That's right there, right? And then the 4/5, which is nearly 1. 3/5, which is nearly 1. That's right there. Okay? So that's how they show up on the graph. Again, guys, that's a pretty tough problem. Would have taken a lot of algebra for you, doable, but hopefully now that you've seen it, you kind of understand it. But again, don't be worried about one like that if we get to any kind of an assessment. Okay, I hope you guys are doing well. Again, good to see you today. See you tomorrow.